Welcome to the Moxo podcast, The Service Orchestrators. I'm your host, Nikita, and today my co-host Naz and I are joined by Micheal Jeffries. He's the CEO of LightYear Docs, a legal tech company that's reimagined client onboarding and service delivery. Now, Micheal shares how he replaced what he called organized chaos with a streamlined, scalable model that's powered by their LightYear Surge app. With this app powered by Moxo, they've eliminated manual handoffs, automated onboarding directly from HubSpot, and created a branded client experience that gives clients everything they need with complete transparency and clarity all in one place. So what's the impact? Expanded services, improved retention, and faster growth, all without increasing headcount. So let's dive in. Micheal, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. In fact, I'm glad we clicked record now because I was really enjoying our conversation pre-recording. So before we dive in any further, I'd love to know, you were talking about having a podcast, right? So who do you bring on? What do you do in your podcast?
I do. And if you saw the back wall to the left of me, it's got the name of our podcast, which is The Hard Naked Truth. So it's a deep dive into business, accounting, technology, and everything in between. So and effectively, because of the name, it's we get under the sheets. We nothing's off limits.
I love it. Get into the hard truths, right? And I think that's what's actually most helpful to businesses in the end of the day. Real guidance, real stories.
Yeah.
That's what really makes an impact.
So I've interviewed competitors and everything in the space. So yeah, as you said, it's really getting down to that truth about everything.
What inspired you to start it? And then I guess in that line of thinking, what inspired you to get started with LightYear Docs? How is this? Talk to us about the journey.
Yeah, so LightYear Docs came about. There were two founders originally. One of them's exited the business now, but the person who exited the business actually reached out to me, and I was in between roles. I was in CFO, COO roles in listed and unlisted groups, and she reached out to me and said, "Look, we're founded this group or company at the time, LightYear Docs, and we're looking to raise some capital." And my background was raising capital. So I had a chat to her and the other director. They brought me on. Post that, I raised around $8 million in AUD and capital for the startup. And they brought me on as a director and subsequently group CEO. So
incredible start, and then clearly can see why they would have made that choice. I guess in your time here so far, right? Can you provide an overview of what does your role look like? And I guess to put that hat on, right, there's the obvious definition of what you can find on Google of what your role would cover.
yes.
But thinking about, what do you experience when you wake up in the morning? What do you worry about when you wake up in the morning in your role? Can we ask you that?
Yeah, my core focus generally is in my CEO role. I try to be as much as possible. It doesn't come off on a day to day all the time because obviously things changes by the minute and the hour. But my three core focus is always amplification, so brand and marketing, strategy, obviously, and then people. And people are being internal, external relationships. So and generally, a lot of it gears towards that people side of things, and people come with opportunities and issues.
Oh, yeah. I think that managing people and managing company culture, you can have an amazing product, but if your company culture isn't there, then that one person who doesn't fit hires another person who doesn't fit, and then you just grow the problem, right? So critical. And I am thoughtful, right? As you got into this journey, right, and you have so many of these different areas you have to focus on. You have to take that 50,000-foot view, but you also have to get into the nitty-gritty details on a day-to-day basis and understand how this entire well-oiled machine runs, right?
Correct. Yeah.
What would you say are some of those challenges and pain points that you've encountered, say, pre-implementation of using, a tech solution like Moxo? I know obviously this was something that LightYear Docs has been using, but I'm very curious, getting back to that point of what you worry about in your role. What are you looking to solve for, right? What maybe a better way to phrase the question is, when you wake up in the morning and if you were to think, I have to pick a solution that would help out X problem or Y problem, what should that solution solve for you and why?
Yeah, I mean, a big thing is, it's that people point again is the communication piece and being able to communicate real time, and efficiently with our clients. So, and also our team. So, and Moxo solve that problem when we implement it, and is further solving it as we expand our team globally. So we've recently taken on our legal back office team, and we've bought our legal firm as well. And as part of that, we've expanded from not only we're having Australia and the Philippines to now having a team in India as well. So, and we're looking at further expansion as well. So that helps in relation to that internal piece for the people, but also the external piece in relation to managing our customers and clients.
That's really incredible. Honestly, you're coming on as CEO and making these bold moves, right? And I mean, I was actually just talking to another client, also coincidentally from Australia, and we were talking about change management. And so I think what comes to mind for me, I mean, there's so many things I want to dive into, but when you're creating these scalable and efficient systems, right? And you're bringing a lot on. I love to hear how you manage things such as client retention, right? It's a tumultuous time. There's so many changes I'm sure going on internally and externally. And I'd love to kind of hear what the client experience has been like for you.
Yeah, I mean, and client retention, as we continue to grow, client retention or client churn becomes more and more an issue. Obviously in the early days, 5 years ago, 5+ years ago, less of an issue because we're the new toy and we're bringing people on, and they tend to be a little bit more sticky. But as our client base grows and grows and grows, retention and definitely becomes more important. And I've found that Moxo is a great solution in relation to that. I'm a big believer in email is dead or almost dead, especially from a marketing perspective and touching clients and that client retention piece. I know myself. I wake up every day and I probably have 50, 60 emails from sales through to education pieces, and I don't have the time. I generally, as we were talking earlier, I go on a walk with my dog each morning. I'll get on my phone and actually go delete, 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 delete because I want to start the day with a clean or fresh inbox. And there's probably content there that I'm missing that is relevant and important, but I just find that email traffic is very difficult now. So it's really important that you have a mechanism to be able to be communicating real time with your clients on a regular basis.
I think in this day and age, email is that black hole. It's a black hole when you're sending it out, you don't know where it's gone, it's in the oblivion, right? There's no tracking mechanism per se. Sure, people will respond to that statement saying, "Well, no, there is. You can check when someone's opened an email." But I think when we have the level of connectivity that we do with things like texting and messaging and apps that center around, yeah, there's a certain transaction in mind, but there's always communication built in. Email feels like a black hole. And it's a spam center. I know exactly what you mean. I feel so guilty every morning. I wake up and I think, am I doing my job well? Because I open my inbox and I see like 50 plus emails of people saying, Nikita, have you seen this new product? And like delete, no, click through. I know I want a clean inbox. And then I think to myself one day, maybe one of those solutions might have actually been
Exactly.
helpful
Yeah.
and would really help my team, but I find it so spammy.
Mm.
And I really relate to that point when you think about how do you market to today's client? There are a whole new set of challenges you have to think about in this paradigm. There's a total paradigm shift in the way people expect to communicate with you.
Mm.
And yet there is also this overload sensation of saying, don't give me another app. Don't give me another way to do something. I'm used to the way I do things. How do you deal with that when bringing on a new client?
Moxo's allowed our client onboarding process to be quite smooth and seamless, which is really, really important, I believe. I believe if you have a seamless, enjoyable experience when you're onboarding clients, they become a lot more stickier. And it tended to be a little, I guess, almost organized chaos prior to that. And so, it's quite an enjoyable experience when new clients come on. We've got automated processes using things like Zapier and everything straight from our CRM, which we use as HubSpot, and that flicks straight across, sets them up into Moxo, and then starts their journey with us in relation to information that's sent out to them. So they, and prior to that, as I said, it was somewhat chaotic. And we've recently actually made some changes in which we have two effective clients. So we have one that what I call as a PAYG client, and so they pay as they go in relation to our legal and business documents, or we have our subscription members. And we did have for quite some time just our subscription members within our Moxo, what I call our playground, and we've now moved so all of our users are actually within Moxo as well. It obviously comes at a cost, but it gives them exposure to our whole product suite and our whole team instead of just receiving a lesser service. So, and I've found that that's been big uplift as well. So.
Well, I think when someone's first experience with you coming on board, is not, hey, I'm going to send you an email and I'm going to wait for that response, or send me a chat here and download this other app, versus, hey, dive in and here's this all encompassing experience that tells me exactly where I am in the process. You set the tone for the rest of the relationship, or the quality of the experience and the services they'll get from you from that initial time. And we all know it. I come from CS before my current role. So I know I worry about that. You worry about retention, and the first month to 2 months can make or break that relationship. And you think, okay, I just spent this amount. Here are my customer acquisition costs. And now, every customer that can potentially fall through in the CS pipeline is just it's a stab to the heart, right? The most critical thing to ensure your customers are onboarded smoothly and are truly supported such that they're loyal to that experience that you just gave them. And you define the rest of what that service cycle will look
You
like,
do.
right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I have so many questions for you, Michael, actually, and I've done my research and I've met with your CSM a couple times, and so just trying to figure out where I want to ask these questions. But one huge thing that I'm well aware of is that LightYear Docs had an acquisition of TG&E Legal, right?
Did. Yeah.
And so can you actually talk to us a bit about that, right? I would love to know what made you feel like LightYear Docs was in the right place for the acquisition, and sort of what was the end result of that?
Yeah, traditionally our initial model was we're an online legal and business document provider, and our external legal sign-off business was TGA Legal. So they were completely independent to us, other than they provided us legally certified templates to put on our platform for our customers to use. So I saw an opportunity in the market to bring them all under the one group. So we had a lot better control and stuff in relation to the entire process. But to provide a better customer experience for our clients was probably the main thing. And I was mentioning before, so we've got our legal back office team based in India. We've got our legal front office team based in Australia. So we've brought our legal back office team and our legal front office into our Moxo as like our playground. We call Moxo Surge, so it's our LightYear Surge app. And I love to, when I'm talking to people, I talk about them having now, especially with the legal team in there, they've effectively got a legal firm in their back pocket 24/7. So they can grab the app and chat with the team, ask any questions, attach documents, start workflows that we've built up. And that our Indian team has created some amazing workflows within that app, and they continue to do stuff. They've just been working on a new product called Trustify in relation to trustee upgrades that we're about to launch to market. And that's effectively a Moxo workflow. So, and I'm sure the clients are going to love it.
That does get me thinking about something I've heard from a number of customers we interview, right? And regardless of industry, I continuously see people say that when they're able to have better, let's say, management over their existing client base, and sure, I could say roll out something like Moxo, but I think the reality is when you're able to run everything in such an organized way where you're not spending a lot of that manual time diving in and doing a bunch of those pieces that you were before, then naturally it enables businesses to offer a greater amount of services. I've heard this from a customer as recently as last week, where they said we used to be able to offer a baseline level of services. And now that we've rolled this out, we're able to expand our service offering and as a result grow without necessarily increasing overhead and adding people, because those services are readily available within the context of their portal. has that been your experience? Or we'd love to know, like, what are the processes that you use it for with clients? Sounds like you get all stakeholders involved on the back end
Mm.
as well. And that's a really powerful way to be able to do it.
Yes, we're certainly, and it's an area that we're focusing more on in relation to the expanded, I guess, product and offering, and we have that using the quick links area, and we're actually going through a naming convention at the moment because I've been working with the Moxo team who have opened up the ability for us to rename all the different areas in there. We had a meeting only couple of
Amazing.
weeks ago. So I'm actually getting the team involved as part of looking at our whole naming and linking with our brand, especially with the changes with the acquisitions and stuff that have gone on. But yeah, so in that what's called quick links now, we have access to not only our products but also our close partner products as well. So we've got a few external partners we work with in relation to things such as ordering hard copies of our documents, or ordering, although it's internal now, but doing trust deed stamping, mortgage registrations, and a few of our other services that we continue to expand out and offer to our clients. So
Yeah. And I think, under that context, it kind of fits into the model we're all used to nowadays, which is you pick up your phone, you click an app, and there's a destination you go to somewhere on your phone that sets the context for the type of transaction you're looking to proceed with. And it's really powerful when you can create that destination and say, here are all these things we can take care of within the context of this, let's say, hub, right? And oh, by the way, in case you request something, that entire process flow you can now track within the same space. I could imagine that would be quite sticky for customers that you're bringing on board who might have come in and said originally, hey, there's one service they're looking for in particular, but that leads to greater opportunity for expansions, right?
yeah, correct. And it's interesting. I mean, we haven't talked about how I landed on Moxo, but and I think that sort of highlights what you're talking about. Is that we I was actually originally looking for a client portal solution for our accounting business. So I have an investment in a large national accounting and advisory business as well, and I was searching, using Google at the time. Obviously AI might help a bit better now, but ChatGPT and stuff. But I was using Google at the top and looking for that solution that we could expand and then get our product offer out to clients. And I was doing a demo with Moxo Fija in Australia, and I actually sent a Slack message. We use Teams now, but I sent a Slack message to, and obviously we use Moxo, but to one of our directors, and I said, "You need to, if I can jump on this now, I'm sorry for swearing, but I think I've found the solution for LightYear Group in relation to what we wanted to do for client interaction, workflows, and delivery of our product and service to market." So she jumped on, and we went down that direction and paused on the other side, on the accounting side. So
Oh, we love the enthusiasm. I mean, to be able to hear that means that it's clearly made an impact, and um that's why we do what we do. And I honestly say this, right? We get a lot of rave reviews for our CS team. We get rave reviews for our product, but we get rave reviews for the experience we provide. And I always think to myself, it's not that I don't think our CS team is great, but I also think that it's possible, and it's made possible because we use our own product to run our business, and I don't think we could do it without. My team is half here, half in India. Some people are in other parts of the world, and all these teams have to work together to make something happen. And I'd say in a way it's amazing to hear how many people have the same experience, because that means, this is the future, right? The future is using AI, using automation as an assistant to knowledge workers, where you can't completely automate that process, right? I mean, in your industry, in your business, and it's the same for us, you're offering some level of consultation. There's a level of advice and guidance. So anywhere where there's human judgment involved, while I'm a daily, hourly user of AI, I always love to ask people what they think about AI's involvement in the future of their industry, because I think it's very much using it as the assistant, making your team stronger such that they can focus more on delivering the human advice. but some people think AI can take it farther, right? So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
it's an interesting one. I'm sort of at often at loggerheads in relation to it. I think it's going to go. I actually believe it's going to go potentially both ways. I mean, I think if you're a laggard and you're sitting here, and not doing anything right now and trying to at least learn some of the tools that are available in relation to AI, I think that potentially there is a big threat coming at you. I think if you are at least keeping with the curve, even ahead of the curve, and then you definitely will be able to use that as an assistant in relation to delivering your products and services to market. But if you're not keeping up with it, I think you're in trouble.
Well, yeah, I mean, the entire world around us is focused on AI. I mean, controversial or not, right? Even take the car industry.
Yes.
You can say, I mean, I would say I always like to say I love German engineering. I like cars that drive really well and have great engines, but hey, there's the future, and the future is electric driving, right? And electric cars. And look at every car now is trying to come up with their Tesla competitor. So whether people like it or not, this idea of AI intelligence, computer generation focused tech that enables something to remove the human is there. And so it's about finding that balance. And yet, in our industries, it's so trust based. Like, I love the analogy of saying 1,000+ years ago, people were doing business, it's a relationship based. And you're probably celebrating with a nice meal and signing on the dotted line with a papyrus and a quill. And now we're doing it on DocuSign and meetings. And hey, but it's the same thing, right? The human element still makes such a difference, especially when those transaction values are higher and when there's ongoing service.
I think as we talk about our business processes too, I don't know, one thing that's coming to mind is that we're kind of in this B2B chain together, right? Moxo works with LightYear Docs, LightYear Docs works with accountants and bookkeeping firms. I'm sure your clients are also probably business owners, entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
And so on and so
Mm.
forth. And so I guess personally, when I think about Moxo in that chain, I mean, and this is not marketing term by any means, but I see us as very sort of infrastructural, where we allow businesses to really orchestrate their service delivery, right? And so curious to hear where you see LightYear Docs in that chain and what you think of your services.
Yeah, no. We're definitely, and we're very similar in terms of an infrastructural business in relation to our technology stack and how it operates and works together, and obviously Moxo is a central part of that. But we, there's been a lot in relation to our development where we've looked at, hey, why don't we create our own and initially that's where we started. Before I came across Moxo, we were actually going, hey, let's create our own uh, portal and communication system, and I guess document depository system. So our own playground, and that was in the really early days. And then I found this solution that went, hey, this actually ticks all the boxes that we want to do. Why create something that's better than we could have created ourselves, and is ready to go and works with where we want to take the business. And and we've traditionally the whole business has continued down that route. If there's a technology piece that we can put into play that fits with our strategy, then we'll do that rather than developing it ourselves. Rather than putting working capital towards creating and actually then making everything work together seamlessly to deliver what we want to on a go-to-market strategy.
Well, you hear this a lot too. I mean, even with an original customer of ours, I don't know if I can say their name here, but they're a very, very large bank.
Yes.
And when we initially spoke to them, their answer was, "This is super interesting. We'll build it ourselves."
Mm.
And actually, we thought we lost that account, and we're like, okay. Um, but our CEO actually said, "No, I think they'll come back because they'll find that it's not even about having all the capital and the 50 engineers to do it, but it's knowing how to do it,
Exactly.
and that's not easy. We've been there before, and it's a difficult problem to solve. Sometimes the simplest answers means they're solving the hardest problems, right? Once the solution's there, it's oh yeah, makes total sense. But to get to that point is difficult, right?
Mm.
And then they ended up coming back to us about 2 years later, and they said, "Hey, we tried to build it, and candidly, we had basically close to 0% increase of our mobile app because they were looking at embedding
a transaction corner experience and communication with relationship managers within their app. And they ended up embedding us, and now they're expanding. They're expanding in the U.S. and a lot of other countries across the world. But that was the key thing they said, and I think that's always a big reminder out there to people: is no matter how small or large your business is, it's not as simple as having the right engineers to solve for it, because it's solving that problem, building that entire spec to T is not easy. And a lot of times that ends up being wasted resources and time when there could be something out there that's more agnostic and that can, let's say, maybe take you 80% of the way, right? But maybe 80% is good enough, right? And so in that line of thinking, when you came across Moxo, taking it back a second, was there something that made you say, oh my God, I need this? What was that aha for you? That I'm like, this is it. Like, what made you think so powerfully that this has to be it for you?
Um, it ticked so many boxes. It definitely ticked more than 80% of the boxes for us. So we wanted something that our users or members could log into. They could communicate with our team, work with our team, but more importantly, they could access our document engine from that. So which is via the quick links mechanism, and access and have access to all of our products and solutions there. So, and that was available straight away. It also ticked off in relation to all of our security needs and requirements, which was really important too. So, and getting back to what you're saying, I think it was the penny drops in relation to focusing on what you're good at and focusing on what your core is, which our core was the legal and business documentation platform, and it wasn't in relation to trying to create a Moxo and trying to do that. So in that ability for it to slot in and work with our product and our initial go-to-market strategy was perfect.
When you went ahead and you said, okay, I'm going to make this decision and I'm going to roll this out, we all know when you're rolling out something new, and especially something like Moxo, where actually the product is complex and it can support such a range of processes and it has a lot of depth to it. It takes some level of effort in the sense of really pushing the mile, right?
Mm.
You can roll it out within a week, you can roll it out tomorrow, you can roll it out quickly, but to really nail your process and make sure you're running each one the way that, you want to get the results that you do, it takes a little bit of time. So, was there something you went about doing to help roll this out successfully across your team? Were there strategies that you felt really helped with incorporating this change in your organization? How was it received?
Initially, obviously, we worked closely with the Moxo team in relation to that rollout, and understanding all the core functions, and working with our whole team in relation to that process, and then working out, okay, how does that fit with what we're trying to deliver and what we want to get to, and then bringing in our development team as well to work on, okay, how do we automate processes and then get exactly the delivery that we want and need out to our clients. So, it was, the project plan was important, and the process behind that.
Definitely. I mean, I'm glad you asked that question, Nikita, because I mean, it's so insightful to hear about the rollout at the very start. And my question actually speeds things up all the way to the present, because I think in the beginning, you mentioned that you were just expanding to New Zealand, right? And so that is incredible, first off, but of course, it comes with its own set of challenges, right? I'm not super familiar with the rules, but I'm imagining there are different local regulations, different compliance frameworks, and things you have to deal with,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
And so, can you talk a bit about those ups and downs and how you're able to manage that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's a lot of global areas we're looking at the moment, but New Zealand was an easy one for an Australian company because it's effectively just across the ditch. A lot of people often, a lot of people often call it part of Australia because it's quite easy to obtain access, visa access between both countries. But for our group being a legal group, it's a common law country, so it makes sense to go into that. So, you know, UK, India, Canada kind of makes sense. Although I mentioned at the start, I was just recently in the US. We are looking at the potential of expanding into the US, and so we've had a few meetings around that. that's, there are compliance challenges, especially from a legal perspective, when you're a legal group. But the way we've done that is, and this is sort of reticent in relation to what we did with Moxo, is partnering with the right partners. So we're in New Zealand. We've been partnering with a legal firm over there in relation to rolling out our documentation, very similar to what we would do if we went into the US or UK or India. So rather than try and use our Australian legal team to recreate something that we're not necessarily been working in that compliance framework, we have established partnerships to do so. And the same as we've established a partnership in relation with Moxo in terms of that solution that locks in. So
Amazing. And I imagine these are high value partnerships, right?
they are.
Do you have any insight? Have they seen Moxo? And do you have any insight onto what their reaction has been?
Yeah, no, the reaction's been really good. To roll out into, obviously New Zealand's early days, but to roll into that out into those, it helps a lot to, you know, go through almost that beta testing with a couple of accounting firms and obviously the law firm that we've been dealing with over there, and show them our playground and how everything works from an Australian perspective, and then to give them an idea of how they could see that fitting in NZ has assisted a lot as well.
I love that you call it a playground, to be honest. I think as we're talking about all these moving parts and all these various stakeholders, it just fits so well.
Yeah, it really does. And I feel like I like the concept of playground because it feels more free. And in a way, it means there's more creativity, there's more that you can do with it. And that gets me thinking, right? Given what you can do with it, given that, I mean, I work for Moxo, but I find myself learning new things every month. We are constantly having something new come out.
Yep.
We're on to the next release, and I'm like, this is so crazy. I can do this. I didn't even know I could do that. And obviously, customer feedback drives a lot of our thinking and what we build next. So I'm curious, in your business, what kind of feedback are you getting from your customers, who interact with Moxo now? I know Naz is talking about these partners. Have you heard any stories or anecdotes or even comments, opinions from customers who are working with you that say, hey, experience pre and post, or just about the experience now if they're new?
Yeah, I mean, customer client ecosystem is so important to us, and we take, we work very heavily on a continuous improvement process on a monthly and quarterly basis, and that's driven from customer feedback, and then overlaid with compliance because we've got legal changes all the time and document changes, but the initial drive and start of that is from customer feedback. So, and it's really, really important. And I see it as our big point of difference to our competitors in Australia as well, in relation to that amazing member ecosystem we've got. They love the Moxo environment because they love the fact that they can communicate with the team, they can share documents, they can share changes, they can get either general or specific advice depending on what they're required, and we can start a workflow in relation to that to ensure that the advice chain is followed as it should be.
And in that context, if I had to describe that impact that you just talked about, right? Saying, okay, this customer can now dive into your portal. They can see exactly where they are in a certain process. They can request a new service and kick off another workflow.
Yes.
If you had to describe the impact of that in terms of, say, time saved or stress that's reduced or revenue, retention, which one did it move the most? Or are there a few that you feel were impacted the most?
I think they're all impacted equally. Like definitely, I mean, stress is a big one because especially with workflows, because you don't know. And I mentioned earlier, I've got an investment in an accounting firm, and the accounting industry is probably the greatest example of that. Is clients, clients send in work, and then clients they wonder where it is at along the process, and it might be that it's actually sitting with them waiting for queries, but they've received an email and stuff, they haven't seen the email, it's been lost, it's in spam, um, and you completely remove that frustration from having those client workflows and client communication chains where you can step through and go, okay, hey, it's with MJ, or it's with the legal team, or it's with the customer waiting for feedback from them. And they can see at any point in time, and they can actually access all their documents and files and go through. So definitely stress, definitely straight away, obviously time and efficiency, and which then leads to overall client satisfaction.
And in the context of that, have you recorded any, let's say, specific numbers in that sense? Have you said, here's where we were running a process at and time it took to complete that process pre-Moxo versus post, anything like that you've been able to record?
We haven't, but certainly, definitely, we are working through that with that new Trustify process that we're putting in place, and the trust deed upgrade and stuff, because that's something that's is being done at scale. So we worked as a small team in relation, and we actually got Moxo involved. And you were talking earlier in relation to new releases and updates. I was on a full team meeting, and I said, "Hey, why don't we set a special projects team? Let's get the Moxo team online, and let's have a discussion in relation to where, we implemented it quite some time ago, and yes, we've made little updates ourselves, and we see new releases and everything. But why don't we talk to the Moxo team, and see, okay, what aren't we using, or what could we be using? What can we do better? What's one of the questions was, I said, what are your customers doing in relation?" And that was where we landed in relation to that whole updating the naming convention of our surgeon playground and everything, was, what are others doing, and what can we implement that others are doing that we're not doing? And and I think that's a really important process to do. And it's putting into place the unknown that mm.
Yes. And coming to that point of you kind of describing it as a playground, we learn so much from our customers, right? I come back to that point that there's so much creativity that each business can express through using the platform, because it's really about being agnostic and taking shape based on what you need for your processes and your organization, your stakeholders, your goals. And so the beautiful thing about that is, we can have a one business next to another business with completely different profiles and processes, and talk to them on the same day and find interesting ways they're getting value out of the same capability. I couldn't agree with you more. In a way, it's what you're doing is what we do with our own team and our own customers, to figure out, hey, sessions like that really drive the roadmap, really drive our ability to say, here's what's next. Or 10 people across a number of different situations are facing this kind of problem, or using this feature made them think that they could also use this extra piece of information, this level of flexibility. And so I think that I'm so happy to hear that you suggested that, because this is the type of stuff that we really learn from. And I think that when you have more of this constant connectivity between teams or between customers, you're able to create a more advice-driven community, right? In general, that's really even the goal behind this podcast, right? It's learning. It's just learning from people who go out there and wake up in the morning with a different set of worries than you or me or Nas, and learning about what their worries are and how we've been able to solve them, and if there has been a real impact. And that's the most, important reason we do our job. So I guess in that line of thinking, I'd ask you, what advice would you give other companies who are thinking about rolling out, a new tech solution, or even taking it back a step, looking for something
Mm.
to solve for the kinds of issues that they have in their business, and say operating issues, right? Client service issues and orchestration. What are some things they need to think about, and how would you advise them to approach the problem?
I think it's important that they have those issues well documented before they start their research journey, and then obviously go down that research and work out what are the potential solutions in the marketplace. Then speak to those, not only speak to those solutions providers, but also speak to other customers using it, and seeing how they've used it, and then working out, is it going to be the right fit to solve the problems or issues they're facing? So, I think that third party validation process is really, really important in choosing the right solution.
Absolutely. And I guess one more thing that comes to mind then is, with this role of AI, right? I can't not bring it back to AI, because it's just such a big part of even what we're exploring, right? There's a lot of exciting things coming there too from our side. And I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, your team is using a bot in some of your workflows. Is that correct? Or in your workspaces?
Yeah.
So how do you see that playing out? Do you see it, any emerging trends in that space that you foresee shaping the future of your industry?
Mm. We're spending a fair bit on AI development at the moment. It's our chair and founder Grant is very passionate about the space, and he spends a lot of time in relation. Especially, we're seeing a lot of changes in the legal profession through AI. Especially in research and education and knowledge, and so we've created a number of different bots from both an external customer facing and internal usage. We're also well advanced in developing a voice driven legal document process. So at the moment, ours is, I guess, interview or keyboard based, and we're working at where you can actually the AI will talk to you and ask you the questions, and we've got an LLM in there that's getting constant feedback and improving that process so that you can actually order documents from your phone, and then the opportunity space then is it's not just legal and business documents. It's really any document because we've got a verified solution and process that certifies the responses and makes it quite streamlined and gives you documentations at the end of it that can be electronically signed and can be straight through process.
In a way, you're creating like another level of a service offering, but and saying, I guess it would make me think that you can command even different price points, right? Because when you're able to offer some of these lower level services, that takes your other services up a notch,
Does.
even in terms of quality and experience, right?
Yeah, and again, it opens up, potentially different markets. I was thinking, when I was flying back from the States, as you land into Sydney, they still hand out those cardboard entry forms, and I thought, imagine if I could just pick up my phone and which we've created the ability to do so, and I could go and complete that, and it being it creates a QR code, they scan it at customs, or it just sends it through. I don't even have to have a QR code. So before the plane even begins entries, it's still such an archaic process. The fact that Qantas are handing out me these, it's not them, it's the Australian government, these cardboard
Yeah.
or these pieces of paper that I then have to try and find a pen to to either get off the flight.
Painful. There's always only 2 pens for 100 people, right?
Exactly, and then you get off the plane and they just grab them. Customs seem to just grab it
Yeah.
anyhow and don't even look. They have a quick scan of it, and I
Seriously.
feel it just gets chucked in the bin after that point in time. In any case,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting when your brain is so focused on creating the right operating model, you see it in so many places.
yeah,
It's like you bring up the airport example, and I had last year I met with this McKinsey consultant who'd been at McKinsey a long time, and he was talking about a project they did in airport systems and how they were doing a workshop for us at Moxo and like process optimization and how to think about some of these challenges that businesses face. And like he brought up an example of redoing all of an airport security lines and the level of they have to think about of all the different situations that you can run into and how many people you have to place. And I feel like, my God, that's the thing, right? There's always somebody behind every process that's thinking about how to optimize it. And you realize in the end of the day, as long as you keep that hat on of how can I make it more efficient? How can I make it more streamlined? And you never let it be with status quo, then you're constantly evolving to create something better. But the moment you leave it and you say, hey, it's fine, then you stop evolving. And within no time, that process is old and outdated,
yes,
right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's an airport screw is a great example of that. I mean,
Yeah.
every single airport's different, within each country, and we which makes no sense to me at all. Like, we have it in Australia. I go from state to state, and the security processes, as the security process is different from each domestic airport, and it even happened in the US between LA and San Fran. Like, I go, I didn't have to take my shoes and belts off in Los Angeles, but now I do.
I
Yeah.
have to do it in San Francisco, and you'll get yelled at if you don't,
Yeah.
right? I know I'm a long time born here, raised in San Francisco, but don't love TSA and SFO. Disclaimer. No, but it's really, I mean, I think the thing is that in the end of the day, it's about staying sharp and staying inspired as a leader in your position to constantly be evolving and saying, okay, it's great, it's working here, but what's next? What's to come a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? And there's constant change that needs to be happening behind the scenes to be able to keep up with that. So I guess maybe if I could end it on a little bit of a thought-provoking question for you. eh, Obviously, we're Moxo, but I'd love to ask you, where do you see workflows heading in your industry, right? And how are you trying to stay ahead of the curve? Forget Moxo alone, just as a business and LightYear Docs. How does tech like this fit into the future you're building?
We're on a pretty big growth trajectory at the moment, or where we want to take the strategy. So, workflow and tech is so important, from the scale perspective. So to be able to go to market with where we want to go next, which is quite a large step up, is it's paramount, because we can't. People are important in that piece, but we can't get to the level and scales that we want to without getting that that tech piece right and that workflow piece right, automation, and in particular the AI side of things. They all fit together, and people are still in a very, very important part of that process. But to scale, not only in Australia, New Zealand, globally, we need to get that 100% right.
Michael, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your insights today. Really enjoyed the conversation with you and appreciate you taking, the opportunity to walk us through every way in which you leverage Moxo, but most importantly, the thinking behind what it takes to run a company like LightYear Docs that's so successful. And how do you think about what the future looks like every day? How do you plan for it? How do you scale, and what types of services you're going to be offering? Thanks for sharing all of that with us and more. And really, really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it. So.
Thank you so much, Michael.